Sit down. Pretend we're at a small table in a quiet cafe, the kind with scratched wood and slightly judgmental lighting. Let me start with the most on-brand sentence I can offer you. Wisdom teeth are proof that growth hurts a little, and then leaves you with something permanent. A quiet discomfort, a strange maturity you didn't ask for, and of course, a bill. Time is a lot like that. You don't notice it at first. Then one day you wake up and realize the years are coming out faster than they went in. Like someone hit 2 times speed on your life and forgot to tell you. And if you're listening to this in early 2026, congratulations, you made it. Now, why does 2020 feel like last Tuesday? So the question isn't, is time actually speeding up? It isn't. Time is doing what time does. It flows. The real question is why it feels like the river is moving faster now. And here's the part you actually care about. Can you reclaim any of it without quitting your job and moving to a monastery? Yes, you can. But first, we have to understand what's really happening. Modern psychology and neuroscience keep circling back to 3 forces that compress time as you age. None of them are mystical, which is slightly disappointing if you were hoping to manifest a longer weekend. But it's also good news. Because if it's not magic, it's mechanics, and mechanics can be adjusted. So, let's talk about the 3 forces. First one. A French thinker named Paul Janet wrote about this idea back in the 1890s. We experience time relative to the total length of our life. Not consciously. More like your brain doing quiet math in the background. Let's do the math out loud. If you're 5 years old, 1 year is 20% of your entire life. That's enormous. That's a fifth of existence. If you're 50, 1 year is 2%. Same year, same number of days, but it lands differently inside you. When you're young, a year is a huge slice of the pie. When you're older, it's a thin slice you barely taste before it's gone. So, yes, part of why time feels faster is simply because your denominator keeps growing. Which is unfair. You'd think surviving longer would come with better perks. Instead, your reward is, congratulations. Time now feels like it's on sale. But here's the real question. If time is partly proportional, what happens when you stop treating years like disposable slices? What happens when you start making certain days count again? The second force is where things get personal. Your brain doesn't measure time like a clock. It measures time like a storyteller. When you look back, your brain doesn't say, ah yes, 365 days. It asks, how much did we record? When you're young, the world is new. Everything is unfamiliar. Everything is vivid. So you record constantly. Novelty forces your brain into high-definition mode. Memory becomes dense. And dense memory feels like long time. But adulthood loves routines. You optimize. You automate. Same route, same screens, same patterns. And your brain, being the energy-saving creature it is, goes, cool, I've seen this episode. We don't need to record it. So it compresses. A commute becomes a tiny file. A week becomes a blur. A month becomes a folder labeled work, errands, and mild existential dread. Here's the uncomfortable truth delivered gently. Years feel shorter because your days are starting to look the same. So let me ask you, when you look back at the last month, do you remember moments, or do you remember one long, smeared impression? Now, the third force. Think about 2 cameras. One shoots at 60 frames per second. Smooth, detailed, almost slow motion. The other shoots at 30 frames per second. Still fine, but less detail. Now imagine your mind has an internal frame rate. When you're young, processing is fast. Everything is new. Everything is data-rich, so you catch more micro details. As you age, that processing speed can slow gradually, not because you're broken, just because biology is biology. Less moment-to-moment detail means the weeks collapse more easily. It's like watching a movie with fewer frames. The plot still happens, but it feels like it moves faster. And if you're thinking, great. So my brain is literally running on older hardware. Yes, welcome to the club. Our membership perks include back pain and remembering phone numbers from 2004. But here's what matters. Even if the frame rate drops a little, you can still influence your mind's recording mode, which brings us to the ancients. Long before brain scans, philosophers were watching the same phenomenon you are. Seneca, Stoic, Roman, chronic hater of wasted life, said something brutally simple. Life isn't short. We just waste a lot of it. He described the busy fool, always occupied, always pulled, and somehow never actually living. If Seneca were alive in 2026, he would not be impressed. He'd look at doom scrolling and say, "So you've turned your attention into soup. Interesting strategy." Then there's Confucius. He stood by a river and said, "Time flows like water." You don't control the river. You learn to swim with awareness. And Augustine, poetic, relentless, described time as a stretching of the mind. The past is memory. The future is expectation. And the present is the thin thread you keep abandoning. So if your mind is always stretched forward, planning, anticipating, refreshing, you're barely living in the only place time can actually be felt. So let me ask you, if attention is the price of time, what are you paying attention to? And is it worthy of your life? All right, now we get practical. Not in a 12 hacks to become a time wizard way, more in an experiment way. Because the goal isn't to control time, it's to stop losing it. Here's the principle. If you want years to feel longer, you need more memory anchors, more texture, more contrast, more moments your brain can't compress. So we're not chasing more productivity. We're chasing distinctness. We're giving your mind reasons to remember. And no, this doesn't require a dramatic reinvention. It requires something much harder. Attention. So I'm going to give you 3 methods. Simple, not easy, but simple. First method, novelty injection. Routine is efficient, it's also forgettable. The antidote isn't chaos, it's small disruptions. There's something people call the holiday paradox. A trip can feel fast in the moment, but long in memory, because the mind recorded more. You don't need a plane ticket, you need contrast. Take a different route, work from a different room, eat something you normally ignore, do one small thing that forces your brain to stop autopiloting, and once a month, just once, create a real anchor. A new place, a new class, a new trail. Something with different air. At the end of December, you don't want one blurred year. You want 12 distinct markers. So here's the question. If this year is going to be remembered, what will it be remembered for? Second method, 1 sentence a day. Not a full journal, just 1 sentence answering. What was the most story-worthy moment today? Not the most productive, not the most impressive. Story-worthy, even boring days have one. The barista remembered my name. The sky looked unreal for 10 seconds. I laughed unexpectedly. I felt jealous and didn't run from it. That sentence does something subtle. It locks the day into memory. Months later, you look back and realize your life wasn't a blur. It was a collection. Now, the third method lives right beside this. Stop creating gray time. Gray time is when you were busy, but you don't know with what. Email, messages, headlines, video, scroll, refresh, and suddenly an hour is gone with no memory to show for it. Gray time isn't productive, it isn't restful. It's just life leaking out in tiny drops. So ask yourself, how much of your year is made of gray time? And if you recovered even a small piece of it, what would you do with that reclaimed space? Let's bring it back to the wisdom tooth. Wisdom teeth are awkward. They come in late, they hurt, they don't always fit, but they're a sign that something in you is changing. Time slipping away feels like that too. Not sharply, always, but subtly. A quiet ache. Not because life is over, but because you can feel how precious it is. The real tragedy isn't that years feel shorter. The tragedy is when they feel shorter because nothing stood out. Because you were always elsewhere. Because attention was constantly rented out to the loudest bidder. So, don't fight the river. Plant something deep enough that the current can't wash it away. A few anchors, a few moments of awe, a few sentences that hold a day in place, a few textured hours your mind can't compress. Deep roots, timeless wisdom. And here's the final question. If time is going to keep moving, what kind of life do you want it to carry you through?